is that just over 20 states have legalized marijuana. That's not even half the country. But demand is increasing across the board, including in states where cannabis is not legal yet. So there is still a demand for cannabis that the legal markets in legal states like California and Oklahoma cannot meet. And so there are people now producing cannabis illegally or unlicensed within the United States and selling it in those places where cannabis either is really expensive, like New York or New Jersey or Chicago. Those places have legalized marijuana, but it's very expensive, or selling it in places where it's still illegal, like North Carolina.
We've mentioned before in multiple videos how much a lot of the illegal drugs are flowing over the Mexican border. A lot of it coming from China itself, who's basically poisoning our family members, our children, without a care in the world. And I keep telling you, with them trying to legalize it, in fact, there was the House bill had passed legalized recreational marijuana last week. That's going to be moving on. The situations, legalizing this does not help Americans. It endangers them further down the line. We've seen this for many decades now. This is not your weed that was in the 1960s. This is a more powerful, potent weed that basically can get you sick, and probably you might, with the mixtures that China and many others have been adding to the weed, could get you killed. And this is the truth. We're seeing it on the streets in Philadelphia, New York, and now stretched out all the way to the other end of the country in Seattle. You've seen that zombie drug out there where they're mixing in with fentanyl. Guess what? Fentanyl can be mixed with marijuana as well. And guess what now, too? I've said the legal trade doesn't work because of the illegal trade that continues to grow, especially in places like New York and California. But where they're getting their weed, a lot of it is being grown by China here in the US of A. But before we get into this article out of Politico, I just once again want to thank those of you for clicking on this video. Please share it, which is very important on there. Our subscription in YouTube has grown close to 700. We're within shooting range about 10 subscribers more, and we will get to the 700 level, and it begins our march to 1,000. Thank you again. Also, do me a favor, hit the like, hit the notification bell. We do really appreciate it. And if you want to drop a comment on there, you can as well on all of our social media platforms. The growing Chinese investment in illegal American weed. Multiple states in the West are seeing an increase in Chinese workers funding unlicensed cultivation operations. A few days before Christmas, a joint law enforcement task force found nearly 9,000 pounds of cannabis worth almost $15 million during a raid in suburban neighborhood in Antioch, California. Now, understand, $15 million worth of cannabis, 9,000 pounds, none of that will be taxed. California Department of Cannabis Control believes that the 4 houses searched in the bedroom community 45 minutes outside San Francisco's was linked to China. Mexican cartels have had a long history of importing, growing, and redistributing illicit cannabis in the United States. But the Chinese investors, owners, and workers have emerged in recent years as a new source of funding for and labor for legal marijuana productions. What is known from interviews with state law enforcement officials, expert on the international drug trade, economists, and lawmakers is that a number of farms funded by sources tracked back to China investors or owners has skyrocketed. Chinese owners and workers have become a larger presence at the illegal grows in Oklahoma, California, and Oregon, they say. In Oklahoma, close to 3,000 of the state, nearly 7,000 licensed marijuana farms have been flagged for suspicious activity by law enforcement over the last year. Let me read that one more time. In Oklahoma, close to 3,000 of the state's nearly 7,000 licensed marijuana farms have been flagged for suspicious activity by law enforcement over the last year. That should tell you something alone. Those operations are being investigated for obtaining their licenses fraudulently and for selling into the illicit market, according to Mark Woodward, a spokesman for the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. The agency believes that 2,000 of those farms have a Chinese connection, supplying workers, funding, or both. Of the 800 farms the OBN has shut down in the last 2 years for operating illegally, Woodward said roughly 75% are linked to China. I would comfortably say over 600 of those were linked to Chinese investors and Chinese organized crime, and some sort of nexus back to China. It's all the Chinese government. It's investors, organized crime, it all links back to them. Law enforcement in Southern Oregon in 2021 reported as many as 20 different nationalities linked to illegal grows. But the increasing amount of Chinese funding and what lawmakers and some experts said is the potential influence of the Chinese Communist Party has caught the attention of legislators and law enforcement alike. We've seen recently that the CCP malignant influence knows no bounds, and unfortunately the cannabis industry is not immune to these tactics. Representative Dave Joyce, a co-chair of the Congressional Cannabis Caucus and former prosecutor, said in a statement to Politico, referencing a Chinese surveillance balloon spotted in February over Montana. Do we want to cultivate an environment in which marijuana growing happens with safeguards and oversight, or continuing to turn a blind eye and allow illicit operations like this to flourish? He added. Much is still unknown about the Chinese funding cannabis cultivations, including whether the money is coming from groups with connections to the Communist Party and how much of the cannabis is produced through Chinese-funded grows stays within the U.S. or leaves the country. It is not clear how deeply involved Chinese organization syndicates are in American cannabis cultivation. This is where the DOJ has slipped. This is where the FBI has slipped, ladies and gentlemen, because this is what they should be looking into. Homeland Security should be looking into this as well. Instead of attacking Americans who are just pushing through their freedom of expression of the Constitution in this country. The Chinese government has complicated relations with organized crime, said Vanda Felt Brown, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute and director of the Initiative on Non-State Armed Actors. Despite the Chinese Communist Party's strict stance on drugs, the triads, which run the global crime networks distributing chemicals needed to manufacture methamphetamine and the fentanyl, and among other potential dangerous substances, often curry favor with the CCP by functioning as an extra-legal enforcers for the government. Flebab Brown said that CCP in turn often allows them to continue their operations, though it does not control them. Liu Pingzhuo, a spokesman for the Chinese embassy in Washington, D.C., told Politico that the Chinese government takes zero-tolerance attitude to drugs, in their own country, and has been rigorously combating drug production, trafficking, and other kind of drug crimes. The Chinese government has asked citizens to refrain from engaging in any illegal or criminal activities while abroad, Liu added, which is a lot of bullshit because they've been going on right now. The fentanyl, most of the fentanyl that's flowing in here is from China itself directly. We know this. We have the evidence. Thelbad Brown cautioned that there's a lot of experts still don't know about the Chinese triad involvement in the cannabis productions. There is a wide range of actors in China that are involved in the drug trafficking, she said, explaining that the same could be true for drug operations in the U.S., encompassing massive organized crime operations and mom-and-pop enterprises alike. It is really important to be careful on what actually lies behind, she adds. And there's a lot more toward this. We can go through numbers and stuff like that. But I'll tell you this. If you happen to be, you know, I can't stop everyone from smoking cannabis. But if you out there smoke cannabis out there, I would take some time off until this is resolved. Because basically you may have a friend that sells you a nice bag on there. Where does he get his bag from? Most likely it comes from China. There have been people that have died because of the drugs that have come from China and the stuff that's grown here. They say that when they mix the drugs, it's mixed locally. Guess what? It's China. It's China's people mixing things locally. You know, the xylazine is being mixed in on there, and we've seen the videos of the results of what people are going through, the addiction, the disgusting flesh-eating disorders that come from this drug, and how children are ending up in the emergency room on just cannabis edibles that have labels similar to stuff that we see, like Fruit Loops and Lucky Charms, and what they're using on the front on there. And children are getting a hold of this, eating a whole bag, and they end up. Has happened. It has happened. You can't get around this. You can't say that this is, you know, that basically this is just, you know, speculation, that it's that this is misinformation, that this is false, this is not happening. No, we do have the receipts to prove this. It's out there. You know, we just need to take this moment, step back, and see what is going on. That's why it's important for you to share this video out to your friends, especially your friends who do smoke cannabis. You know, I myself, I have nothing against any of you who want to smoke cannabis. That's your issue to the situation. But I think we need to show that we could absolve for this for a time period until this China situation is resolved. You yourselves might one day get a hold of the wrong type of cannabis in your smoke, and next thing you know, you're either getting a limb removed or you might end up in the cemetery. So you, my viewers, give me a comment below. Tell me your thoughts to the situation, because this is very important to share this video and comment on it. We need to keep this conversation going. This is why I tell you, hit that subscription button. So basically we move up in the algorithm, and the like, so more and more people hear about this, because basically the mainstream media will not touch base on this. This is important on there. This is very important. Again, I said, I don't care if you want to smoke pot, but this is killing people. This is killing our family, our friends. You know, this is very important. They're trying to destroy us from the inside out. And this is one of the ways they're doing this. And it's got to stop. Contact your local congressman or congresswoman. Tell them how upset you are with this situation, that it needs to investigation. The legalization by government needs to be halted and investigated. Who has pushed into these past bills that are trying to legalize this? This is a danger to the American society. So please comment, like, subscribe, share, and once again, thank you for clicking on this video. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye now.